Hello, everyone. Welcome to Banner Badgers. I made it just in time. Um, yeah. Hi, everyone. Dave here from Banner Badgers. Well done, Steve, co-host, supreme, extraordinaire. Well done.
I was
We
trusting
are
to push buttons and the world didn't end.
exactly, yeah. We are joined this evening by the Alan Rowe, who's the creator of Section D, a pulp fiction
Hello.
RPG phenomenon. Or at least it will be. Now, before we get into it, we're going to say a massive shout out, thank you to Ian. As you all know, he's a Dragonborn bard, also one of the badgers. I've just been racing. It is like if there was me versus Tom Cruise in a running race, I would beat him. Um, I have just run across the world to be here as fast as I can. But anyway, yeah, cheers in. Beers on me at Dragon Meat. But yeah. So how was that? Did you like that? That intro is pretty cool, isn't it, Alan? I love that.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah,
Yeah,
I was quite pleased with it. So, yeah.
no, that was good. So Alan's here to talk about Section D. It's a kind of a pulp uh, spy thriller as well, with everything that's been going on behind the scenes, all the secret files and bits and pieces like that. But if you have questions, for those of you who are joining us live, if you have questions, do let us know now. As you get questions, as you pop into your head, do let us know into live chat. For those of you joining live on Twitch, if you happen to be watching this on YouTube, thank you very much. Please like and subscribe while you're here. We're trying to hit 1,000. I think we're at 980. I think 990, 980, 990. So do go and hit us up at YouTube. And if you have questions that we don't manage to answer here and now, put them in the comments below, and I'll send them over to Alan, and he will get the answers to you. We'll do it that way. How about that? So do get those questions over into us now. Just type them into type chat thingy, and they'll come across. Now we met Alan just over a month ago at the UK Games Expo.
Yep.
Um, it was two times I saw the book that was on the stand, and there was this big kind of flash of red amongst all the other RPGs. It's a very handsome looking book, and that pulled us towards it. And from there we met Alan. We met a load of other fantastic people as well, and we had a beer in the evening, which was great to have a catch up on that. But anyway, how was the UK Games Expo for you, Alan?
It was really good. Yeah. I've better than expected. It's the first time I'd actually done Expo for the weekend, either certainly as just an attendee, and obviously the first time I've been there as an exhibitor.
Yeah.
Yeah, it went really well. We had obviously the Section D book with because I, as well as doing Imaginarium games, I also sort of work independently with a game distributor. And we're the only people in the UK at the moment who have any physical Savage Worlds products that we have distributed in the UK and Europe. So because of that, we got a lot of attention from Savage Worlds fans, and that gave me the opportunity to talk about the book. And yeah, we sold well, had some really good chats, met some really good people,
Like
yourselves
us?
included,
Yeah.
of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just
you, yeah, that's
a
fine.
great weekend. Yeah, it was a really good weekend. I was knackered by the end of it, but it was
Yeah.
good.
Yes.
It was a good weekend.
Oh, it was
So that was.
horrendous. Yeah.
Sorry, I was going to say that was the other thing that drew us into that stand as well. Is because there was Pathfinder books
Yeah.
there, because Pathfinder, Savage Worlds do a Pathfinder setting edition. It's there behind you. So that drew us in because I saw the Rise of the Rune Lords books as well, and that's part of the thing we got talking about was Paizo not having any distribution in the UK because you can't get a physical copy of their book.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I shouldn't. I'm not going to sort of sit here and slag anybody off, but there was a distributor who wasn't paying a lot of attention to Savage Worlds, and Pinnacle, the producers of Savage Worlds, weren't too happy with that. We offered them an alternative, and they grabbed it with both hands, and we're just so happy about it. So, as
Cool.
far as numbers, that's all I have to say about that.
Yeah. Well, it's too early. It's too early on in the interview. We've only just started, so we've got an hour. We've got an hour. Oh, you got a beer. I didn't get one. Um, now you mentioned Savage Worlds, and this is something we want to we get on fairly early on in this as well, because um, we haven't played Savage Worlds here on Band of Badgers. We haven't gone near it. We haven't played it.
Yeah.
And just to kind of tease something that's coming out fairly well later on this year, is that Alan has kindly signed up to our GM Creator Series. So Alan will be running us through one of his adventures later on in the year, and we will be learning how to play Savage Worlds. Alan is going to instruct us on how to play it. We're going to be putting a team together. So if you're a badger, if you're just a member of the audience and you want to learn how to play Savage Worlds, join us for that. But if you actually want to be here and play the game with us, we'll be playing some Section D. I do know what we're playing, but I'm going to keep that under wraps for now. It's very cool. Then get in touch, and we'll have you on as part of the team. But what was it that made you go for Savage Worlds? Apart from with the whole Wizard of the Coast OGL fiasco, which put up a lot of people. Why? What made you go with Savage Worlds? I'm really kind of keen to know.
Okay, so the Secret Files of Section D project is a lot older than the whole blow up with OGL. I wish I'd been able to produce it in the amount of time that's gone between that happening and now. So now I've been a player of Savage Worlds for probably since about 2007, 2008, something like that. And I've just found it to be very easy. It's quite flexible and a very easy system to learn as well. It's a die step system, so it uses from D4 to D12 for your statistics and for your skills. The better you are at something, or the stronger you are, the higher the die that you roll. The target number is typically a 4, and whatever die you've got, and that's it. That's that's the mechanics in a nutshell. The GM worries about modifiers for certain things. The game has mechanics for handling chases, handling quick encounters, so you can do something in a more narrative style, and all that kind of stuff. So that there's a lot of flexibility to it. That's what drew me into Savage Worlds, really. And then the Section D thing, funny story, is that I've been running a fantasy version of Savage Worlds for some guys at a convention, and I was looking for something new. My wife came into the room where I work, and she said, "Do you want a cup of tea?" And I thought, "Want a cup of tea? That sounds like an Aztec god." And then I thought, well, where would you find an Aztec god called Want a Cup of Tea? And it'd be at the ancient city of Putakatlan. And literally from that stupid thought in my head, the Secret Files of Section D was born. And it was just like, okay, you've got an Aztec god, and you've got a crazy name for a temple. And once I stopped giggling to myself, it was like, okay, so who would go after that? So I started doing some research as to who might do that, and I found Section D. Section D was a real division of the Secret Intelligence Service. Started in 1938, as was sort of mentioned there on the little video, and then in 1940, when Winston Churchill became Prime Minister, and he issued his famous "Set the World Ablaze" decree. And they set up the Special Operations Executive. Something like 90% of the field agents that went into the Special Operations Executive were Section D guys. So they'd already been working in Europe preparing for clandestine warfare. So that's the background of Section D. I've waffled for ages. I haven't answered your question. Why Savage Worlds? It just works. It's just it's built around cinematic, pulpy, fast action, and that kind of thing. That's what it was built for. Savage Worlds is now in the 4th generation of its rules, and and it's always had that kind of pulp feel to it. And again, it's cinematic kind of action, really.
You mentioned the pulp side of things. I mean, again, not being familiar with Savage Worlds and the stuff they've done. What I did know was what's the Western one?
Deadlands.
Deadlands. So that I knew because
Yeah.
I've seen people do a live plays of that before.
Mm-hmm.
But what I didn't realize that when I was looking at Pinnacle is that they had they've got comics on there.
Yeah.
So, independent comics, and some of those have just been turned into role-playing games, and I thought that was absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
So I'd be keen to see what else they do.
Deadlands is the genesis of the Savage Worlds role-playing system.
Yeah.
So Deadlands as a setting, what have you, came first, and then this game system that was built around that setting is what eventually became Savage Worlds.
It was a miniature game, wasn't it, originally?
Yeah.
So we got a question on screen from Dragonborn Industries, who says, "So is Section D historically accurate?" Up to a point.
To a point, yeah. So what I've done with the book is I've given the kind of history of major powers in the world, from the Great Depression to the beginning or to 1938, where things started ramping up in Europe, and it was starting to become obvious that another war was probably going to happen. So what you have is background details on the USA, Soviet Union, Japan, Great Britain, Germany, and Italy. So the sort of the key powers really at the time. So they're all detailed, and I did a lot of research into that to give, at the end of the day, you've got to try and get 10 years of history into 5 paragraphs. So it's as accurate as I could be without making it a history lesson.
Yeah.
On top of the sort of what's happening with each country and the kind of attitudes of the people and stuff like that, there's then a breakdown of all the intelligence services within those countries as well, and that is historically accurate. So, I mean, a key example to this is the Gestapo. Everybody thinks the Gestapo are the real bad guys, and these are the guys that are going chasing Indiana Jones and all of this kind of thing. No, they're not. The Gestapo were still bad guys, don't get me wrong, but the way that they're portrayed in the movies is nothing like what the actual Gestapo was about. That was the Sicherheitsdienst, which is a much bigger mouthful than Gestapo, so it's easier to say Gestapo. But the Germans had other units that were going off around the world and looking for artifacts and doing nasty stuff. But the Gestapo operated primarily within Germany. So that's an example of the level of historical accuracy that we've gone for. But then we put a spin on that as well. So we've got aliens are real. Mummies can be brought back to life, and there's a secret society of people called Fate who are there purely to look after people's fate, make sure they don't go off their destiny, and they can do some pretty funky stuff as well. So.
Yeah, you got a question on screen as well by Tavus, 1977. You're a mere babe. Is a question. There's a lot going on the banner there behind you. It says UFOs, a mummy, a guy with an eye patch blowing up the Houses of Parliament. What kind of alternate history, weird stuff, does Section D cover? Now, what I'll do is I'll put this up on the screen because we can have a closer look at the artwork then. And it is. I mean, this is the front cover of the book. We've got some more shots there. There's the front and the back. And you can see how kind of I do say pulpy quite a lot, but it is a secret file. The whole book is laid out that way as well. You've got all these kind of typed out bits and pieces in the book. These fantastic photos from. I mean, look at the UFO there. I mean, that's amazing. But it's just it's one of those kind of weird alternate histories. It's intriguing to read up on some of this stuff as well. I've had Alan was kind enough to share a PDF copy, so we kind of looked in. You kind of dabble in, dabble out. It's one of those things that when you do want a cup of tea and you sit there quietly, you can just flick through and you pick up these weird pieces of information, which is like, but what if that was true? which is quite staggering. And there's Alan there, so you can see that
that's quite staggering. Look at the size of that guy.
So that's just so you can see the size of the book. We've got a size comparison.
All right.
If you know what ALLAN is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what's this? I mean, it does everything. And again, there's mummies and pharaohs. It's science fiction, science horror, everything.
Yeah. I mean, the idea is the whole idea behind the setting is that you can take, you can watch an episode of Quantum Leap or The X-Files or something like that, and you can build a story around it. So I mean, Tavis's question, a lot going on. What kind of alternative history / weird stuff does Section D cover? So, as I said, the premise is miracles can happen, aliens are real, mummies are buried deep for a reason, and so you can do anything with it. And Savage Worlds is a very flexible system with that as well. So, giving an example of that, just if you go into the magic system, if you look at the magic system for D&D or Pathfinder, you've probably got, I don't know what, 200-300 spells or something like that,
and continually growing. Yeah.
But how many of those are actually just a reskin of a different spell? The way Savage Worlds does things is that there's a core of, I think it's 52. I think it's 54. But what Savage Worlds does is it puts a skin on that called a trapping. So if you have, what you might call magic missile in D&D is a bolt spell in Savage Worlds. So how you put a trapping on that is it could be fire, it could be ice, it could be lava, it could be a stream of insects, or if you're a psionicist, a stream of obscenity. It's something that hits the target with force. So you've got a building block of spells, and how you dress that up as a player or a GM is entirely up to you. And you can transpose that into a weird history. So you don't have to, the guy on the front cover there with the eye patch that's blowing up the Houses of Parliament. This is Herr Gerhard Rinsch. Yes, he was intentionally named G. Rinsch because I originally wrote him for a guy who was going to try and kidnap Santa to steal Santa's technology. I haven't released that yet, but at some point I will do. But then I used that character in the adventure Trouble in Tripoli, which is with the Taster edition of the game, which is free.
Yeah.
So
Alan, just a plug. Where can people find the Taster?
So the Taster edition is on the Imaginarium Games website, free to download. And if you go to the publisher page for Imaginarium Games on Drive-Thru RPG, you can download the Taster edition and some of the free stuff that's there as well. And the adventure that's in the Taster edition is 60-70 pages. It's a full adventure. It's not it's not one of these sort of a one sheet thing. It's a full adventure that probably run over 3 or 4 sessions. So he's got he's used a volcano. He's a pulp bad guy. He's got a volcano, of course he does.
Yeah.
And he's tapped into this volcano and made an alternative to helium for powering an airship. So he's built the biggest airship in the world, of course, and he's going to use that to take over the world. It's without that's the spoiler-free version.
So there was a question right at the start. This doesn't necessarily mean anything to me.
Is
but
this you,
he
Steve?
talks about
It
the
says,
magic
it
system.
says Power Steve. Is that
This
you?
is not me. No, no, I'm not Power Steve.
Right.
I was
Do
gonna
you
say.
recommend using the Pulp Fantastic book in conjunction with this? I'm going to say yes and no. Jonathan's book is good. It's more of in the kind of probably more towards the Indiana Jones Doc Savage kind of idea.
Right.
So from that perspective, good. However, it is, to my knowledge anyway, I think it's for a previous version of Savage Worlds, unless they've recently updated it. But I don't think it's the most up-to-date rule set. So I would never say use my product over somebody else's. So all I would say is that Section D will probably add to what you might find in Pulp Fantastic. So we have mission generators. We've got all of that information about the intelligence services around the world at the time in that sort of Pulp era. So there's probably a lot more detail in there than you might find in something like Pulp Fantastic. And there are rules for creating spy gadgets and things like that as well. So I guess what I'm saying is it will definitely work in conjunction. Pulp Fantastic might be for the slightly older rule set. I'm not entirely sure about that. But like I said, I would never run down somebody else's product in favour of my own. I hope that's a fair answer. Maybe Power Steve will let us know if that's a fair answer or if
We also had another one from Dragonborn Industries. So looking at the banner, looking at the website, I noticed a section about hindrances. What is pulp flavour, and what are hindrances that give the adventures that pulp flavour?
Okay, so much like D&D has its feats, extra little things that a character can do, Savage Worlds has edges which do that as well, and the trade-off for that is that your character also has hindrances. So this is something that it's a good and a bad thing. One of the core mechanics within Savage Worlds is something called bennies. So it's a little token. You get to start off each game session with 3 of them, and you can use a benny to do a lot of things. You can, if you fudge your roll, you can say, "Oh, I'm going to spend a benny and I'm going to ignore that roll and re-roll." You can gain extra bennies by playing your hindrances. So it might be a habit, and that habit might be picking your nose. So if you sit like this, if you sit with a finger up your nose while you're speaking to the King of Sweden, you're going to get a benny because you've played your hindrance. So what we've done in Section D is we've done some hindrances like there's one called flashbacks, which is somebody's had a kind of a post-traumatic stress thing, and that's on the more serious end of it. Another one of the hindrances is called gid moaning, which if you've seen Hello Hello, the Officer Crabtree and Hello Hello.
Yeah.
Yep.
Now what you have to accept at this point is that Officer Crabtree is a special operations executive agent and could well have been a Section D agent. So when he spooks like thus, when he's pissing by the deer and he hears 2 shots in the newt, that's where the gid moaning hindrance comes from. So the character can speak a bunch of languages, but he gets the vowels mixed up and the present and past tense mixed up and all of that kind of thing. So you role play that, and you get a benefit for role playing that. So that's kind of what the hindrances do. The edges, I think you've actually got a little bit of artwork of 2 guys by the car.
Yep, I can bring that up for you.
One of the edges that we put into, or that I put into Section D, is called Magic Laundry. So this is the guy who, no matter what he's been through, he always comes out the other side of it looking absolutely pristine. So here, obviously you've got a wrecked car, you've got a guy that's dishevelled, wondering what the hell's gone on, and another guy who just looks like nothing's happened. where this came from, the inspiration behind this was the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, The Last Action Hero. So there's a scene in that where Arnie's character falls into a tar pit, and he comes out of this tar pit and he's absolutely covered, he's black as black head to foot. And then the camera pans away, and a couple of other characters have a bit of dialogue, and the camera pans back, and Arnie's absolutely pristine clean, apart from a hanky that's just got a bit of this tar on it. And that is exactly where it came from. Well, James Bond, there's one scene, I'm trying to remember which movie it is, but he lands in a train carriage that's had the back end of it ripped off, and all he does is adjust his cufflinks and moves on, So yeah, that's one of the edges that just helps your character look good all the time, which means that they get bonuses to do certain actions in certain circumstances. But it's all about flavour.
Love it.
So Power Steve did respond. So Pulp Fantastic is for Suede, which I believe stands for Savage Worlds Adventure Edition.
Okay.
And he also says he's participated in one of the playtest sessions. So.
Right. Okay. Trying to see that. If that was one of the games that was run by Kevin Doswell. Yeah. So Kevin did the playtest. You met Kevin at Expo.
We did. Yeah.
So Kevin did the playtest sessions for the adventure that's in the Taster Edition, and he's run. He's also run the adventure that's going to come out fairly soon, Better Latte Than Never. So it'd be interesting to know which one Steve's played and what. Well, I mean, he said he had a blast, so that's good.
You kind of tease us there with Better Latte or Never. We do have another question in there actually. This is from Belladonna.
So are there any additional books, adventures, expansions available sexually, or are there plans for that in the future? And I had a question along the same vein. You talked about running from the Great Depression up to around the start of Second World War in 1938. It sounds like it's a system that you'd very easily take into the start of the Cold War and during the Cold War, sort of late 70s, early 80s, around that period as well. Would that be something you would consider expanding into?
Yeah. Without a shadow of a doubt. So the way things are planned at the moment, I mean, numerous things have happened. I ran the Kickstarter. The Kickstarter was successful. There are 3 adventures to deliver on the Kickstarter, which I have to admit they are behind. There are reasons, health and other things, but the first one of those is Better Latte Than Never, and it's a trilogy of adventures. So Better Latte Than Never is I'm in the sort of final stages of layout at the moment, but I'm redesigning all of the encounter maps for it. And then the follow on from that is another adventure called Going for a Song, and then there is Shades of Grey. So that's the third. That's the third adventure that's sort of in that trilogy, and that's the kind of Kickstarter obligation. But all of these things will come out, and then after that. Sorry, Dave. You.
I was going to add on to that. What made you redesign all the maps?
Yeah, that's your fault as well. Yeah.
I'm glad we could help.
Yeah. So what made me redesign all the maps was that you guys introduced me to Till of Dungeon Fog.
Yeah, great guy.
A demo of the software. The most important thing for me is, well, 2 important things. One, it looks great. The results you can get are absolutely brilliant. But secondly, everything carries a commercial license, so I've got no worries about the art assets and things like that. And somebody, 5 years down the line, turning up and saying that blender on the counter in your map is something that I drew. So it's so yeah, but it's taken some time to get used to it, but the results are pretty spectacular.
Yeah, it's a very good piece of software.
So I mean, don't get me wrong. The maps that are in the Taster Edition in Trouble in Tripoli adventure, I'm quite pleased with the way that they turned out for the most part. But I kind of thought I could do better. So when I started looking at Dungeon Fog, it was just the only thing for me is it's a different way of working. So it's just taking time to to start working in a new way. Now I'm sure Steve can back this up. Steve was saying earlier on that he sort of works with design software and things like that. I mean, in my dim and distant past, I worked with CAD systems for packaging. So every time somebody changes something, I remember going from a DOS CAD system to a Windows CAD system.
Yeah.
Totally different way of working. And you just have to, it just takes a bit of time to get used to it. Once you are used to it, the results are great. So
it's moving with the times.
And then going back to the question about what's coming up for Savage for the Secret Files of Section D. So some of the ideas that I've got is that the idea is that this book can take people through the Second World War period as agents of one thing or another. They can tangle with the Germans and the Japanese if they want to, or the Axis powers and what have you. The current book would take somebody up to the end of the Second World War, maybe a little bit beyond. But as you quite rightly say, once the Cold War starts, that's a whole different ball game. The plan is at some point there will be a Cold War edition. So again, that will probably be a bit more history. It will cover a much wider timeline, because that will go sort of 50s to 80s kind of thing. I've been reading some books recently around an American chap called Stephen Greer and the Disclosure Project and things like that. And just reading that and thinking this would just be so good for Section D. There's a lot of stuff out there that can be done, and it's a neglected part of role playing as well, I think. I think fantasy is all over the place, cyberpunk, sci-fi, but pulp and espionage is a little lacking.
Yeah, and I completely forgot it's Happy Moon Day today, so that's another thing that you could slot in as well. 20th of July, we landed on the moon.
Oh, right, okay, yes.
Yeah, I was
all
about
that one as well.
So it's only me that geeks out on landing on the moon. Okay.
Well, you mentioned don't be shy, try different games. We actually have a question here. So wannabe Viking games. They're basically asking how do we get other people involved?
It's a great way to ask how you get other people involved as well.
How do you get other people involved? So this is it. But you can, if you already have a group and you're playing D&D, you're playing Pathfinder, you're playing whatever you ritually play every time you get around the table with the same bunch of people, and they never want to change their minds. It's always a case of, well, we're seeing this adventure through to the end. The GM is starting reading other books, and they want to give them a spin. The best time to do it is when someone's on holiday. So you can say, look, you're not going to miss out on the main campaign, but Bob's not going to be here. That leaves just the three of us with the GM. I'm going to run something special. And the GM, it's a lot of work for the GM, but make some pre-gen characters for them so your players don't have to think. Give them some dice. Turn up and say, right, you are going to be this character, and for the next 2, 3, 6, 8 hours, we're just going to have some silly fun and enjoy it and settle into it. You don't miss the main game. The player who's away doesn't miss the main game. And it's a great way of introducing something fun and funny and different into your main gaming group. It works. It does. So give it a go. That's my advice anyway. But Alan, if you have advice, shout.
I would have said exactly the same thing. It's just exactly that. When somebody's away and do you know what, guys? Instead of cancelling the game, let's get together and I've got an idea. We'll do this.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna plug something here. This is an unashamed plug. What I've done with Section D is I've developed within the book is a card-based adventure generator. So you can literally get a standard deck of cards, which Savage Worlds uses for other mechanics. You get a standard deck of cards, and with the turn of 4 or 5 cards, you've got a mission.
Yeah.
With 4 or 5 more, you've got a villain, and with a couple more, you've got the villain's lair. So you could almost do it at the table. But you could put down the basics of a Section D mission in less than an hour, with nothing but a deck of cards in the book.
Yep.
So that does go back to a question we were talking about off air. And so we've already talked about the Savage World system, but we talked about villains of the week theme. So exactly what you were talking about there, almost building it on the fly. This adventure you're going to go on for a one-shot theme, but then there is also the longer-term campaign. So we're obviously clear on this being an episodic setup and a way of playing the game, but is there a campaign as well? Can you play it over the longer term like you would a traditional D&D adventure, for example?
Absolutely, yes, categorically. So
there's the actual question. Sorry.
Within the book, there are 3 campaign modes. So we give you the pulp campaign. It can be villain or monster of the week kind of idea. There are also rules within that, so that you might do villain of the week, but at the end of it you find out that the villain that you just defeated actually has a higher villain, a master villain. So you can kind of move on from that. So you've got that kind of pulp feel, and it doesn't have to be about villain of the week. You can do artifact hunts and all kinds of things as well. The second campaign mode, as I call it, kind of the middle ground, is what I call the espionage campaign. So this is more kind of James Bond. So you've still got all your crazy gadgets and all that kind of stuff, but you're working in a particular place and building a network of intelligence. Building up your network of spies, building up your informants and things like that, and then figuring out who the enemies are, and that involves more role playing, more world building, for want of a better word.
Right.
And then the final one is, as I've called it in the book, the military campaign, and that is what the real activities of Section D were, which is to prepare for clandestine and guerrilla warfare in the event of invasion. Sorry. So that is all about those kind of secret meetings and making sure that you've got supplies, and making sure that when you do go after the bad guys, that the reprisals on the people you're trying to protect aren't too bad. So it's a really intense role-playing experience, and there's some quite clear recommendations in the book of take these rules out, make it more gritty, pay attention to the fact that bad stuff was happening, and don't take it lightly. If you're going to play this campaign, play it properly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the options are there for long-term campaigns. I mean, the pulpy and silly side of it, I've had a group that I run the game for a twice yearly convention. So we literally get together every 6 months. That's all it is. But it's been going on for 4 or 5 years now.
Yeah.
So that's all of the adventures that have been done so far. The ones that will come out as part of over the next few months, and then the new one as well, which it's called Jurassic Pork.
And by the way, that might be the one that we end up playing.
The pig might be out the bag, you mean?
Yeah. There we go. Who's earning the bacon now? So we talking about potential new books.
Don't ham it up too much, Dave.
I'm trying not to. But Big Tough Pete did say, and I know Big Tough Pete is a big fan of 50 Shades. He's bookmarked the books and he's worn out the DVDs.
Yes,
So
they're well dog-eared.
So he's definitely seen to that. And also we have Power Steve came back and said, I played online. So this is going back to his original question. I think Peter Hildreth was the GM.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So I know Peter. Peter is my US champion. He's a really great guy, and he was one of the first people to kind of really get behind Section D and the Kickstarter and what have you. And he actually, I'm going to see if I can point this in the right direction. He actually got some secret files of Section D dice made for me.
Really nice.
Shipped them over from America for me.
Oh wow!
So yeah, Peter is a top guy, yeah, he's played in a few of the games. We went through one of the play tests of Better Latte Than Never with those guys, and although it's been play tested, I'm probably going to get the same guys together and do the next one, which is Going for a Song, which you know, maybe a minor spoiler alert, but the Nazis are trying to weaponize opera. I'll let you figure the rest of that out for yourselves.
You mentioned the games. We also had another one here. His wannabe Viking games. Brilliant. He said the one Alan ran with the zombies when you were playtesting, he said he really enjoyed. So
right,
yeah,
I think I don't think that was zombies. I think that was the one that I did. Pinnacle did a Halloween event, and it was to do with the launch of their setting called Holler. And so they called it Halloween. So I quickly made a Halloween setting with a bunch of animated scarecrows running around the Oxfordshire countryside, making a nuisance of themselves. But the gag in that story is that all of these scarecrows they have pumpkins for heads. So anytime you break one, the seeds come out, and the seeds grow into more heads. And then if the heads can find something to use as a body, then they become animated and they carry on.
Oh, lovely.
But the original zombie was a deaf guy. So it's called Curse of the Undeaf, because these zombies, they can't hear properly. So when they were given a command, they were given a command to find a farmer with the harvest, and the farmer said, "Go and bring in the grains." At which point you've got a bunch of scarecrows with pumpkins for heads rampaging around the village, and they're stealing bike chains, and they're in the church singing refrains, and they're trying to fix the drains and all of this kind of stuff. So yeah.
I love it how it all seems to be a mashup of like Doctor Who and Monty Python and all the great stuff of British tongue-in-cheek
You can tell
humor.
that I grew up in the 70s and 80s, can't you?
Exactly. We got another question about gaming. Again, this is from Viking. How do you find playing compares online to over the table? Now, my answer to this, by the way, if anyone cares, is in person is far better than online. It tops it every single time. The advantage to online is that you can go longer distances. We've personally, Band of Badgers, we've played with people in the States, people in Europe, people in Australia, and they're fantastic to mix that up and to make those contacts. If I could get around the table, I would, but I know I'm not rich, so I can't. But how have you found playing? Have you played Section D around a table in person?
Yeah. That was the genesis of it. Was at a convention, and playing with a bunch of guys around a table, and one of the guys is a guy called Simon Burley, who some people might recognise the name. Some people might recognise his most famous work was a superhero game that Games Workshop put out in the early 80s called Golden Heroes.
Yeah.
So Simon Burley was one of the players in this game, and he sort of came to me after we'd done a couple of sessions, and he said that you just need to publish that. So getting around the table is great, but again, I'm like you online. I've run Section D sessions for guys in the US, and players from all around the UK. Everybody online. There is Secret Files of Section D is available on Fantasy Grounds.
Right.
So it's all the conversion work has been done, and that actually comes with the adventure that's in the Taster Edition as well. So that's all been done, and it's there officially on Fantasy Grounds, and I'm trying to find somebody who can do that for something, for Roll20 and Foundry and others as well. So, but do I find it? I'm with you. I think it's much better at the table.
I have an extension to that actually. Here's one from Dragonborn Industries. The second half. Is it better played as an RPG and Theatre of the Mind? What's your personal take? If you're sitting around the table, do you use minis? We talked about. When you're working with Dungeon Fog, are you doing world maps or are you doing battle maps?
So I'm doing battle maps.
Yeah.
And it's one of those that I'm with my plan, as I've done with the Taster Edition, is to have a VTT package that goes with it. So if you want to put it on VTT, you've got the battle map, it's there ready to go. If you want to print that battle map out, you can do that, put it on the table, be ready to go. Savage Worlds as a system, I would say it probably works better with minis, or some kind of representation as to where people are and things like that. Because certainly with Section D, for example, it's not necessarily melee combat. And D&D is probably, I'd say probably 75% melee combat. Section D is probably 50-50 in terms of melee and missile weapons. So sometimes just having a bit of a representation as to where people are, what covers available, things like that could be good. But the other thing with Savage Worlds is that you've got quick resolution systems as well. So they're built into the Savage Worlds core rules is something called a quick encounter. So you don't necessarily have to have, the player characters, 5 or 6 people, plus a couple of hangers-on that they might have, and the horde of goblins, and run it round by round by round. You can simply let people do it in a more narrative style, and then it can be dealt with one die roll, with it from each character, as to what happens. Now, the rules clearly state that invariably the player characters are going to win this fight. Only if they mess it up really badly would you maybe fudge that, but it's something that the characters are designed to win. And every adventure has them. That there are encounters in there that players are designed to win. Or designed for the players to win that. So it's just a way of resolving that. And Savage Worlds also has a fairly simple mass battle system, which again just works on bouncing a few dice instead of round by round by round.
Just for everybody who's joining us live, thank you very much for joining us live. We're down into the last 10 minutes, so if you have any more questions, do get them into chat now. Alan, I wanted to pick your brain on some of the artwork. You shared some of the artwork. If we put it on screen, and you can just talk us through some of the bits, because we want to make sure we cover as much of these as we can. So if you want to explain each one, or do you have a particular artist that you use? Do you just go to anyone who's out there?
Most of the art, the piece that you're showing on screen now, this was done by my cousin, Matt McGawley. And he's got that kind of very comic book kind of style. So
it's spot on, actually. It is spot on, exactly what the kind of artwork that I remember. For me, it reminds me of it's like Dan Dare and Eagle and
Yeah.
all that kind
Yeah,
of stuff.
very much Eagle. Yeah, that's spot on.
Yeah.
That.
Yeah. I mean, the whole feel that we were going for, that we hope is sort of reflected even in the cover of the book, is that it's that kind of the newsstand dime book
Yes.
kind of idea from that sort of era as well. So yeah, I mean, but what's this one about? This one doesn't actually really have a huge story to it. It's just
we've got plenty more to look at. We're good.
Right. So this one, this is one of the pledge levels that we had on the Kickstarter, was that you could have a character made in your likeness. So this is one of the top level Kickstarter backers, and he is. You can't really. So unfortunately, it's cut off a little bit on the image that I'm seeing here. But yeah, so he is the leader of a German research organization called Geheimes Forschungsgruppe, which never existed, but I invented it, threw it in there anyway. But it's kind of like the Q division for the SS, if you like. So
Yeah.
So what he's invented there, what you can't quite see unfortunately, is kind of a battle rifle, but it runs on water. And it has a liquid nitrogen tank attached to it, so it can fire ice bolts, or it can do a freeze ray. And this is the guy who's doing that, who sort of heads up that organisation.
Cool.
So
we got a different style of art here as well.
Yeah. So this one's done by a guy called Tithi Luadthong, and it wasn't done specifically for me, but it just fitted really well, and I just found it very evocative, and I was describing a character who, a German agent who operates in the United States by the name of Doris Nacht. Because if the British have got Doris Day, then the Germans have got Doris Nacht.
Doris Knight, yeah.
And yeah, it fitted. There are there's a few other bits of Tithy's artwork in the book as well. I think if you can, you showed me.
We got that one.
Now that's one that I actually made myself. And when I say made, I do mean made, because I got a couple of different images and kind of put them all together. And that is to highlight it. I've done it because I've made one of the example spy gadgets that I made was an invisibility suit.
Yes, it's really clever.
So I put this thing together. It is a composite of 4 or 5 different images actually. But in the book, it gets, the actual image in the book is about an inch high and maybe 2 inches wide or something. And I just thought it's just too good to not have. So in the end, I actually made a full page spread of it. So just because I just love the way that the first time you look at it, you barely see the fact that there's a guy standing in the corner there.
Yeah.
It just worked really, really well. So
the next 2 is featuring some undead, which I'm a big fan of.
So this is Matt's work again. And again, it reflects the whole, as it says in the trailer and stuff, is that the ancient pharaohs were buried deep for a good reason. I mean, you can't have pulp adventure type things without going to the Mummy movies with Brendan Fraser and
yeah.
It's just it's just classic pulp adventure kind of thing, isn't it? So
yeah.
If you're having pulp, you've got to have, there are certain staples you've got to have. Got to have a mummy.
The film, the Mummy, the Brendan Fraser Mummy films are actually very, very good because it is tongue-in-cheek humor in there as well. The whole thing with battering a skull off the swords, bop, is only that we've seen in cartoons before. But actually to take it into a film, and that the first film with Brendan Fraser, that just ignited the whole thing again. It was so well done, so well constructed. We haven't seen anything of the like of it for a while. But I love this artwork. Massive fan of undead, skeletons, mummies, zombies. So I
Yeah, well, again,
absolutely love
so
this one.
that's Matt. That's my cousin Matt's artwork. Okay, yes, the undead pilot, yet to be used. In fact, Matt just came up with this idea and he drew it, and I was like, do you know what? That's amazing, but I just don't know. It's not got a place in anything that I've done. But I think what I'm going to have to do is I think I'm just going to have to build an adventure around that one thing. Maybe we can have a competition.
Yeah, that's a good idea, actually.
Yeah, build us a story around this and see what we get. Yeah, maybe we'll just plug it into we'll plug it into ChatGPT and see what comes out.
see what comes up.
Too soon?
Give it a go. Give it a go. Dragon Ball Industries says, "Can you suggest? This is a good question. Can you suggest any pulp fantasy books that I should go and check out to get a flavour for the setting?"
Oh, that is a good question. Clive Cussler, what's his name? Dirk.
I'll Google it. It's going to bug me otherwise.
What's really a really good series of books is Matthew Riley. His a book that starts with 7 Ancient Wonders, and then it's 7 Ancient Wonders, and then it sort of works down 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So it's a series of 7 books, all linked together. And the first one starts with a quest to find the 7 ancient wonders of the world, or parts of the 7 ancient wonders of the world. And although it's set in the modern time, or very contemporary, so it's not set in the same time as Section D, but as a concept, it really works. And you know, Matthew Riley's a great author anyway. But that series, the 7 ancient wonders. 7 ancient wonders, 6 sacred stones, 5 greatest warriors, and I can't remember the others. I think it ends with the 1 lost labyrinth or something like that. But it's one impossible labyrinth. But it's it's a cracking series of books. I mean, other than that, you know, take a look at Indiana Jones or something, because that's where a lot of my inspiration came from.
Well, a lot of the pre-war or during the war is stuff like Tintin.
Yeah.
We grew up with all of that in the schools, in UK schools, even though it's a European title. But the Tintin books are fantastic. They are spy books. They're spy stories.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you can also go and check those out.
Yeah.
You would definitely find Tintin in any library.
Yeah. Any library or bookstore, I would have thought.
Yeah.
Or hello.
Yeah, always a classic.
They have to look at crazy stuff they get up to. There.
Yes.
But it's Tintin. So yeah, Tintin, Hergé, Clive Cussler, Matthew Riley. I couldn't recommend Matthew Riley enough.
Cool. Well, we're gonna. I was gonna say we're gonna wrap things up there, everybody. Hopefully, you enjoyed this. Now, Alan is going to come back later this year. As I said at the beginning, he's going to join our GM Creator Series. So Alan will be taking us on an adventure. It is potentially going to be Jurassic Park. I have to get I'm really going to have a watch of a few Hello episodes now, just to create a character. How bad can my accents really get now?
You're going to create a character with the gid moaning hindrance.
If I can.
I would go for that.
Yeah, if we can, why not? Now, Alan, are you going to be at any conventions? You've already done UK Games Expo. It's in the past. We know of Dragon Meet in December. If you're going, but is there any others you're going to?
We have we've got a trade stand at Dragon Meet. So I'll be I'll definitely be there with GMS. So
Yeah.
we'll have everything that we have to do with Savage Worlds, plus a load of other stuff, chivalry and sorcery, things like that as well, and all of the Nightfall Games stuff, SLA Industries and things like that. So that's going to be there.
Yeah.
And Dragon Meat, and then before that, probably not, maybe 2-3 weeks before that, there's another convention that I've been doing the last couple of years is Gamers Gaming Getaway. It's
Gaming
like
Getaway.
a 4-day thing that happens in Shropshire.
Okay. You'll have to send me the details. I'd be keen to know about
a
that.
really good weekend. So it's like part role playing, board gaming, but they also have a load of LARP stuff going on and things like that as well. So it's like it's the full gaming milieu.
Yeah, I'd be keen to know more. Send me the details. I'll be up for doing something like that.
Yeah.
We're always on the lookout for more things that we can do in person, so we can bring people along. Hagley is saying, we just had a question come in. Can we find your products at Gen Con over in the States? I think that's in 2 weekends away.
Okay, so the previously mentioned, I know Peter Hildreth. He is going to Gen Con and he is going to be doing some Section D games.
Cool.
So it'd be worth having a look on the game sign up things for that. We don't have a trade stand at Gen Con, but we do have a US distributor. So if you're interested in if you are interested in the book, then you can order it from from the website at Imaginarium Games, and we ship from the US, so you're not paying ridiculous shipping charges, and you'll have your book within a few days.
Brilliant. And just
the link for Drive for RPG is down there as well if you do want a PDF copy.
Yeah, there are some stockists in the US. We've got I think there's one in Oregon, one in Kansas City, and another one I believe it's Texas. And we do have availability for retailers if they're interested in the US as well. So it is out there, definitely. It's not just a UK thing.
Cool. One final plug for yourself, Alan. Why should people buy Section D?
Why should people buy Section D? Because I am a poor game writer and I need
the and again, let's just bring up the cover of the books again, because Alan showed
to be serious, the thing with Section D, the Secret Files of Section D is designed from the ground up to be a little bit tongue-in-cheek. It's not meant to be taken particularly seriously. You can if you want. The option is there for a very, very serious campaign play. But if you want something that's just a bit tongue-in-cheek and a little bit of fun for a few hours, everything is in that book that will help you do that. That's why you should buy it.
Fantastic. Superb. Right, everybody, we are going to leave it there. If you're watching this on YouTube, thank you very much for joining. Remember to like and subscribe. We're trying to hit 1,000 subscribers. Anything you can do to help with that is fantastic. If you have any comments, do let us know if you have any questions, do let us know in the comments below, and I will send them on to Alan so we have all the correct answers for you. But until next time, you will have to go to imaginariumgames.com.
Thank you very much, guys. It's been very enjoyable.
Thank you.
It's always a pleasure to talk to you, Alan. And again, we met UK Games Expo. That was just over a month away. And managed. And one of the things with UK Games Expo is the sound was absolutely horrendous. We went there as myself and Steve were there as press. The recordings that we did make on some other interviews, the sound didn't come out that well. We tracked down and we talked to as many people as we could, and we said, look, would you prefer to do this kind of thing instead? Alan is one of the people who said yes. So hopefully you enjoyed it. Hopefully we helped you answer some questions and showcase you in a nice way. And there's more to come.
Great.
Cool. Fantastic. And with that, everybody, we will see you next time. Until then, bye.
Cheerio.
Want to see how long it takes Steve to push the button?
I was queuing up a raid. Sorry.